Mindfulness means you're just present, and you're practicing mindfulness every day, whether you realize it or not. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions about self-care is that it's selfish. And there's a big difference between being selfish and self-centered.
Welcome to the Be Better broadcast. Today, we are joined by Julie Cooley, who is a second-time guest coming on the show to speak about mindfulness, how to reduce stress, how to live a better life. If you didn't catch the first episode with Julie back in 2021, it has been a few years. And if you're new to Julie, Julie is a seasoned Toastmaster and a facilitator of mindfulness and innovation. She has facilitated many workshops, some including If the Buddha Dated, Zen, and the Art of Falling in Love, and Pain is Inevitable, Suffering is Optional. Julie is passionate about helping you to reduce stress and tension in your life using a multitude of resources that she has discovered in her own journey of reclaiming her health from an undiagnosed chronic illness. In our first conversation, we really talked about what that undiagnosed chronic illness was. We talked about Julie's health journey. We talked about steps you can take today in order to reduce stress and become more mindful and present in this moment. We talked about Qigong. We talked about all those things. There will be a link in the description to the first episode, but this episode will be great for you even if you did not listen to the first one. So when you take away even just one piece of advice or strategy or insight from Julie, all that we ask is you share this show and conversation with just one other person. You're the reason that the Be Better broadcast has grown the way that it has over the past 2 years to over 300 episodes, because you are the best part of the Be Better team. So without further ado, my friend and return guest on the Be Better broadcast, Julie Cooley. It's great to have you back on the show, Julie.
Hey, Brandon. Thank you so much for having me back.
Absolutely. One thing that I greatly respect about you is your desire and your passion for always learning and continuing to learn, because you learning allows you to then put these different teachings in the workshops that you have and the conversations that we have to reach and help so many people. Because I specifically remember from our first conversation, I received several messages from people saying they really enjoyed our conversation together. And you are an incredible connector. The people that we've had on the show, like Vidya Raman and Don King, they only came on the show because you recommended them, and a couple other people too that I just can't think of right now. So I just want to thank you for being a great friend, and I want to thank you for always being a lifelong learner.
My pleasure. Yeah, learning is a passion. I have tons and tons of books to my husband's chagrin. Not fun to move them, but
yes. Exactly. So let me ask you, Julie, when it comes to mindfulness, when it comes to self-care in general, what are some misconceptions that you believe have been created or that people have around self-care and mindfulness, just based on the conversations you've had with people and the workshops that you've given?
Well, we'll start with self-care. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions about self-care is that it's selfish. And there's a big difference between being selfish and self-centered. It's celebrated in our culture to sacrifice yourself, like the mother, giving her whole life for her child, working several jobs, the single mother working several jobs, having no life so that her child can thrive. Yes, of course, we want our children to thrive, but why does it have to be at the sacrifice of the mother? Elvis Stoico, who was an Olympic skater in the 90s, I believe, he was in the Olympics, and unfortunately, he tore his groin. And he had to skate with incredible pain. He came in second on the silver, which was amazing, but the focus was that he skated with pain. Why do we have to skate through pain? Why do people have to be an entertainer and do their job after their parent died and they're grieving? That is, oh, they're so strong. They're so persistent. And that is what is focused on. And then we all feel like we have to live up to that. We need to take time for our own healing. And honestly, if we take time for ourselves, then we have so much more to give to others. But if you are drawing from an empty cup, you're not giving your best. And that's when, as a parent, you may snap when your child is, doing something like spilling their milk, or, doing something that children do that normally wouldn't faze you. But if you're depleted because you're not taking care of yourself, then that adds to more reaction. So that is a horrible misconception in this society, is, oh, it is so strong and so brave to continue on, even though you're crying or you're in pain or you just suffered a huge loss. Just keep going, keep hustling. No, take the time for yourself, because you know what? You're going to pay for it later. Your body is going to take that, hold it, and it will show up in cancer, heart attack, some physical symptom at a later point.
Yeah, you mentioned that in a comment that I literally saw this morning and replied to when I talked to Dr. Iris Davis and Kate Godley about functional medicine. You commented saying that repressing our emotions and being overworked, being overtired, being in that pain, and just continuing on saying, I'm going to work through it, I'm just going to keep going anyway, that itself can harbor dis-ease in the body and can actually cause illnesses and greater problems down the road, just because we're ignoring it or we're working through it. Because maybe we grew up in a family where our parents said, toughen up, work through the pain, just keep going anyway. And that's just something that we do, but then it creates so many different problems in the future. So I'm curious to hear, when it comes to people who just heard what you said and they say, Julie, that sounds great. It sounds, I would love to incorporate more self-care into my life. I know I could use it. Like, what is self-care at the most basic level? Like, does it take a ton of time to incorporate it into your day? And maybe for those who aren't familiar with you or your teachings, what are some ways that you incorporate self-care into your day?
Yeah, so you can start small. There's a concept that I love that Toastmasters had in one of their magazines called snackifying. And I just love that term. So I stole it. So snackifying is just taking a little bit of time. And believe it or not, it only requires a little bit of time. So how I started was, my job was getting super stressful and I was miserable. So 5 minutes of meditation in the morning. That's all it took to help me learn how to respond, because it's the consistency of it, not the time you're devoting. 5 minutes a day to self-care is much more effective than 1 hour every 2 weeks. So snackify those habits. And for each person, it can look different. It could be a little bit of exercise in the morning, going out for a walk in nature, reading a positive book, journaling, listening to a positive song first thing in the morning that gets you dancing. There are so many different things that you can do that don't require a lot of time, because that's a very precious resource. And that's what stops a lot of people from habits. But there's great books out there like Atomic Habits by James Clear that talks about that. Just start, just trick your brain and say, I'm going to spend 1 minute. Everybody has 1 minute. Even with a newborn baby, you have 1 minute.
It's true.
So, just take that tiny bit of time. And what you're going to find is you're going to crave more. Over the last 3 years, which have been tough on everybody, I've needed more and more time for self-care. I've taken that time to step back and have more ritual, make sure, I do more Qigong every day, try to get some reading in. I need more of that self-care because the world is more stressful. And in order to be able to deal with it, I need to replenish myself more and more. But if it's overwhelming to you, start with one thing and start with 5 minutes a day. And then, if that doesn't work for you, try something else, but be consistent about it, because that is where the power lies, is in the consistency.
Absolutely love that. So you named a couple really good ones here. And the point is, from what it sounds like, from what you're saying, is choose one to begin. Choose one thing on this list that Julie gave her. I'll give you a couple here too that I just looked up from the Montgomery Hospice Service here. They've got some self-care techniques on their website, but something as simple as a back massage. that you can give yourself using one of those little back massage devices or machines. Maybe you go get a massage once a week at a professional masseuse, or reading a poem or writing a poem, listening to your favorite song, what you mentioned, Julie, journaling with some journal prompts, like 3 things you're grateful for, an object that's important to you, a time that made you laugh that you can revisit in your mind and truly go back to that place and be there again, a walk each day. Like for me, especially with a newborn, like you said, you have to make that time, right? So I think the number one thing that a newborn has taught me is not just how to be a parent, right? Which I'm learning every single day and every minute at this point, which is another whole experience. But if you want to do something, you truly have to make the time to do it. The time will not just be there. And I've learned more than ever to be more focused and mindful with the time that I do have. And I've been more structured in the sense that I'm planning what I want to do ahead of time. So I'll plan my self-care ahead of time now. I know that there are several things that make me feel much better. The main thing is the guitar. I've got 2 guitars in my living room. I can just go over and pick them up and grab them. I'll make a guitar video and post it to Facebook or YouTube, and people are like, wow, this was so cool. Do more of these. And it's like, I do these for me, right? I'll learn a song. I'll get it down, quote unquote, get it down as much as possible in my own style. And I'll post a video. And by doing that, it's like a release in itself. So I know these several things that I can go to that will make me feel better in any given moment. One is the guitar. The other is going to the gym. Even if I don't want to in the moment, I feel better afterwards. Sometimes even a nice warm shower with some good music playing can do it too. But choosing one and just beginning with that one has been super powerful. So those are some great tips. When it comes to those self-care routines and the concept of mindfulness, now, does mindfulness and self-care go together? Are they separate? What exactly do you mean when you speak about mindfulness? What does that word mean to you?
Mindfulness is just staying in the present moment. So a lot of people, when they think of mindfulness, think of a monk sitting there for hours at a time meditating. No, mindfulness means you're just present, and you're practicing mindfulness every day, whether you realize it or not. When I'm at work and I'm concentrating on what I'm doing, that's mindfulness. When you're playing guitar, you're practicing mindfulness. When you're with your baby's forcing you to practice mindfulness, to stay in that moment. So we're all practicing mindfulness every day, whether we realize it or not. But what we want to do is when we start to observe those thoughts, and that's part of mindfulness, and we catch ourselves having thoughts of the past or the future, that's where we kind of want to say, okay, let's bring ourselves back, because that's where we all go. We're worried about the future. How am I going to pay this bill? What am I going to do? Where's the next job? What's my kid doing? All sorts of things. Our mind goes from thing to thing to thing to thing. And in Buddhism, that's called the monkey mind. And it's natural, and it's not something to shame ourselves for. It's a human protective mechanism. The human mind is always trying to protect us, and it's our friend. So, a lot of things that you listen to might be saying, oh, the ego's bad. It's not bad. It's just trying to protect you. But the ways it's trying to protect you aren't always the best ways. So it's about, living your life more in the here and now. And there's all sorts of ways to practice that. Yes, I'm a fan of meditation. Took me a long, long, long time to become a fan of meditation because it was hard for me, but it doesn't have to be just sitting there. There's great guided meditations. Insight Timer is a wonderful app that offers thousands of free meditations, guided music, nature sounds, but just taking a walk in nature is mindfulness. Playing your favorite instrument, going to the gym, playing sports, whatever lights you up and you are focused on it, that's mindfulness.
You can Google and look up a bunch of different benefits that you get from practicing mindfulness and doing these techniques in order to train yourself to become more mindful and become even better at getting back to this present moment. Because there are stretches in my day that I'll realize, wow, like 4 hours just flew by and I wasn't present for any of it. It just happened. It was automatic. It was something that I did. And then in that moment of me realizing and becoming aware that those 4 hours flew by, I'll realize like, wow, I wasn't there the entire time, but in this moment, I am here. And that moment that you are here is almost the most blissful moment of that day to that point, because now you're realizing this is the only moment that I have right now. Like those listening, this moment where you're listening to my voice and Julie's voice, this is the only moment that exists. The future doesn't exist. The past is over. All you have is right now. And in so many ways, that in itself is freeing, because if you're due on some bills in this present moment, you are okay. All is well in this present moment. And it gives you time to think, okay, well, what can I do moving forward in order to better my situation? But going back to that present moment in itself is very powerful. And like I said, you can look up different benefits on mindfulness. I'm curious to know from you, is there an unexpected benefit that mindfulness has created in your life, maybe in recent times?
Well, this isn't totally unexpected because I knew about it, but this is for me the most powerful benefit is being able to respond versus react. So all you have to do is go on the news and social media to just see how reactive everybody is right now. And it's understandable with all the trauma that we've had over the last 3 years. But what mindfulness and meditation can give you is stepping back and being able to respond and think instead of react, and things won't tick you off as much. So, we have stressors all throughout the day. You could be stuck in traffic. Your spouse can upset you. Your child can upset you. There's your coworkers, your boss. You could have a lot of work on your plate. Oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. So many things come at us, and it's how we react to them. And we don't want to react. We want to respond. So what you'll find just naturally when you practice mindfulness and other self-care techniques is things that used to bother you don't as much. So if I get stuck in traffic, as long as I'm not going to be really late for something, it's like, oh, well, I get to listen longer to my favorite podcast. I get to listen to Brandon some more, or I get to listen to some music. So, it's just reframing things and how you can see them differently. Remaining calm. So when somebody is angry, instead of them triggering you, you're like, okay, I'm just going to take a deep breath and remain calm for them. And if you remain calm and centered for them, it's going to help them calm down. Nobody ever gets calm by telling them to calm down. So, that doesn't work. Trying to stop it doesn't work. So you just breathe. And you can remain calm. You can be the example that you want to set. And you can be the example for your kids too. Instead of getting upset when kids are kids, and especially at the age of 2, and they're no, 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 and they drop things and they tick you off and they just naturally know how to push your buttons. Mm-hmm. Instead of you reacting, and you're able to remain there for them and see it for really what it is. Because when we react, it's because it's triggering something for us. It's triggering something for our past. And we may not be conscious of that, but then it triggers you, and then it triggers them, and then it triggers you, and then it just blows up, and not a pretty picture. So that's what mindfulness can help you do, is just, okay, this isn't a life-threatening situation most of the time. If it's life-threatening, get the heck out of there. But it's not a life-threatening situation. Just breathe. It's not about me. Let me be there for the other person. But unless we are in the present moment, unless we practice this before it happens, we won't be able to do that. So it's all about mindfulness helps you have that calm in the chaos. That's the goal.
Calm in the chaos. That's great. And think about at the same time what you said of being able to respond and not react when your child who is 2 is saying no, 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 and they're pushing your buttons. What does that teach them when they're able to see you respond in that peaceful way, in that calm way? It translates that directly to them. They are literally little mimics of you. They are becoming little versions of you. They do what you do. If you immediately respond and or react, I should say, then they're going to learn to react. I remember I work in the retail world for over a decade now, and there was one situation I'll never forget, and it actually happened in the last year, where a father came in with his son, and his son was probably 3 or 4 years old, and the lack of control of this man when it came to his son was running this way, running that way, running this way, running that way, and the father was just reacting. No, come back, stop it, please come back over here. And it was almost like the father was whining. And I remember I saw that and I said, that will never be me as a father. I will learn from this experience and I will respond rather than react. And it's not just that moment that happened. That situation between father and son was created as a culmination of events from when that child was 6 months or whenever the timeline is to that point. So if you can start now to respond versus to react with your family, in business, in your community, in anything, even when you listen to the news article and you hear about the submarine, right? Everyone's hearing the submarine story, which is terrible because that's human lives. But think about this, Julie, and I know you think about this. And for all those listening, I invite you to consider back in the day, like, thousands of years ago, we didn't have the news. We didn't have a TV to turn on to hear about this submarine. We didn't hear about the war over and wherever. We didn't hear about those things. We were with our small group of people, 10 to 15 people, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. And our only concerns were, am I going to get food for today? Is there food that was hunted? And where are we traveling to? Like, that was pretty much the only concerns. We didn't have smartphones to scroll. We didn't have the news. We didn't have a ton of these different groups and tribes of people around us. So that stress that we're feeling is such a primal thing that's meant to keep us alive. But like you said, Julie, we're not generally in life or death situations anymore. If you are, get out of there. But nowadays we're not. So that stress hasn't changed in the way that it makes us feel. So I'm curious, you have been developing and working on these 3 R's, you call them, to reduce stress and to become more mindful as a result. So what prompted these 3 R's? And maybe you can give us an idea of how you began to form them over the past year or so.
So we all need something catchy as a speaker. It was things I was practicing anyway. And how can we make it memorable for people? How can we portray it so that they can incorporate it into their own lives? Because there's so much information out there, as you just said, with the news and everything else. So I kind of looked at it, and for me, it's reclaiming your life back from chronic illness. Yes, you can use these same principles for reclaiming stress and everything else, but my focus is on people with undiagnosed chronic illnesses, because it brings a special kind of stress when you have an invisible illness that nobody believes you. It's easy when you have a broken arm or you're on oxygen that people can see that you're sick, but if they can't see it, they don't believe it. So the 3 R's are body, mind, and spirit centric. So for the body, relaxation, relax. For the mind, reframe. For the spirit, replenish. Your body needs to be relaxed in order to heal. And your body is miraculous. Unfortunately, not many of us are relaxed. As you just mentioned, there's lots of stressors, and most people are good people. They're empathetic, they're compassionate. So when you hear a story about people dying or, people getting hurt, you get stressed out on their behalf because you care. You care about their families that are affected. You care about the lives lost. And if you don't care, then you're seen as mean, and cruel. There's unfortunately some memes laughing at this, which is terrible. And then we react to that too. So, the first thing is, unfortunately, we do have to practice some non-attachment. And that doesn't mean we don't care, but it means we don't let it affect us so much. My husband's always sharing with me world problems. And I'm like, but I can't do anything about it. I'm not going to get worked up if I can't do anything about it. If I can do something about it, great, I'm going to. And that's what's in our control, what's in our power, the people around us, ourselves. So you start with yourself, get in contact with that higher power, whatever your belief system is. start with that connection so you can get beyond the world, because the world is absolutely nuts. And then, focus on you. Like we talked about, being self-centered is not being selfish. You have to focus on you in order to give the best of you to the ones around you. So then you focus on yourself, and then you focus on your loved ones. And as you mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, something as simple as me recommending other speakers to you, has a ripple effect. It's the networking, it's the people's lives you're affecting. That's what makes the change in the world. You can't fight for world peace. You can't fight to change things, because fighting doesn't do any good. It's the love and the compassion that you can share with other people that will have that ripple effect. If we remember, for those of us who are a little older, the AT&T commercials, and then they called a friend, and then they called 2 friends, and they called 4 friends, and they called 8 friends. It's the ripple effect. The good that you do in the world will ripple out. And that's where our power lies. We can't help those poor people in the submarine. We can't help the people in Ukraine. We can't help, different wars. We can't change governments singly, but we can make a difference in the people's lives together. And we can make a difference in our communities, local, and change things that way. So the important thing to get back into relaxation is realize what's in your control and what's not in your control. And what's in your control are your thoughts, your actions. That's it. That's it. No matter how much you love somebody, you can't control them. You can't, you might be able to influence, inspire, be a role model, but it's up to them whether they take on those behaviors or not. It doesn't matter, no matter what you do, it's still their choice. So that's where you have control, is your choices. So let the rest of the stuff go as much as you can. Try to relax that body. Every day spend some time in either meditation, exercise, nature, whatever works for you. But it's not going to do you or anybody else any good if your body's stressed out. And that's how I kind of see it, is like, is it doing the person in the submarine any good for me to be stressed out, to cry, to be angry? Not going to help them.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that I don't care. It just means I'm not going to spend my precious energy on things I can't control.
Yes.
And, and it's our responsibility to take back that energy. And that's why I love Qigong too. We mentioned that a little bit, is because you're reclaiming the energy you spent throughout the day. Because as much as I tell myself during the work day, I'm not going to get stressed. I'm not going to get stressed. I'm just going to do one thing at a time. Inevitably, I get a little bit stressed. So then I'm like, okay, bring myself back. I can only do one thing at a time. I'm only human, they can wait. This is not a life and death situation. They're not going to die if I don't get to the request today. So it's just, and that brings us into reframing. The second R, we got to reframe our thoughts to lead to that relaxation. Because it's so easy to get worked up. I mean, if you just look at social media, look at the news, it's so easy to react and get involved. And we think we're doing something, but we're not. It's not influencing anything. So we got to take back control where it's at, which is our choices, our thoughts, and our actions. That's where our power lies. And we need to take our power back. And honestly, the news estate, all that stuff takes your power away from you, because you're spending your energy on something you can't do anything about.
Yes.
So reclaim your power back. And that's and how you do that is reframe your thoughts. First of all, mindfulness will help you be aware of your thoughts in the first place. Then where did this thought come from? Is this a story that was told to me? Is this really true? Does this do me any good? Is there anything I can do about this? If there's not, come back and do what you can, in your life.
Yeah.
And then, because everything is so stressful, you got to replenish your soul. And that's going back into those self-care techniques. Hot bath, if you can afford it. I'm a big fan of massage, and I can't always afford that. But do things that are affordable for you. Treat yourself. I have an acupressure mat. Treat yourself to maybe an inexpensive massage tool. Or, if you really don't have the funds, there are lots of things that are for free. There are lots of breathing techniques, hot bath, hot shower, as you had mentioned. Do things that make you feel good and engage all the senses. Sense of smell, burn a favorite candle or essential oils, hearing, play your favorite music, tasting. Don't overindulge, but, have a little piece of dark chocolate or a slice of pizza, something that's going to make you feel good. We don't want to go too crazy with that, but there's nothing wrong with moderation. So to indulge all of the senses, visual, look at something that's going to make you laugh. Go to YouTube, watch your favorite comedian, watch your kids when they were younger, something that's going to make you feel good. Do things that make you feel good to replenish. So it's relax, reframe, replenish, body, mind, soul. And we need to incorporate all of them because unfortunately, all of them have been compromised by just living in this world. So in order to really heal, you need to integrate all of them, and they're not separate. We might think our body's separate from our mind, but really, where is your mind? Is it up here? No.
Yeah.
Actually, there's more in your stomach for nerve endings than in your brain. So, it's all integrated. And when you do one, you're influencing the others. But again, it's all, what can we really, really do? I would love world peace, but I don't think I'm going to be the cause of that, but I can be peace in me. And then hopefully that will ripple out to peace in my family and peace in my coworkers and peace in my friends. That's where our power lies.
Just think about you inviting, and you mentioned this, but you inviting your friends to be on this show that a lot of people then listen to and share with their friends. So yes, while you are not the total cause of world peace, what is the total cause of world peace? Many people coming together and finding peace in themselves. And that's really the purpose of this conversation. If someone even just takes one thing away, it's do one thing each day for yourself in order to relax and reframe and replenish. And it's so fun, especially the reframing piece when it comes to the mind strategy that you gave. And by the way, that trifecta is great. Body, mind, spirit, relax, reframe, replenish. And I invite everyone to rewind 5 minutes and listen to that again and again and again, because if you can master those 3 R's, then you are well on the road to mastering your own well-being. And I took a lot away personally from the reframing aspect because I was a person who I just believed my thoughts were automatic. I believed that you thought what you thought and there was nothing you could do about that. I used to believe that your thoughts are your own. And still to this day, I'll have a thought come in my mind that I'll repeat out loud. And my wife will say funny things like, maybe you should listen to this podcast, the Be Better broadcast. That might help you. And she's hilarious. But what she does is she's bringing awareness to me when I fail to have it myself. And we have the relationship now where we're able to receive that jesting back and forth. Obviously you don't want to do that to a random stranger or even a coworker, but my wife and I can. And she's right. Sometimes I fail to stop, be in the moment, and realize that thought coming through my mind isn't my own. And I love those questions. I'd like to ask you to repeat those reframing questions that you repeated. As an example, one of them was, where did this thought come from? What are some ways, Julie, that you reframe the thoughts that you're experiencing when you're in times of stress or hardship today?
Sure. Well, I'll tell a little bit of story of a few years ago. So I grew up with a lot of fear. My mom was a very fearful person. And so I grew up with a lot of fear. And one of the things that was beaten over my head when I used to live in Connecticut, and you're familiar with Connecticut, there's a city called Hartford. And unfortunately, over the years, Hartford has become pretty dangerous. And my uncle had been mugged there probably 45, 50 years ago. And I kept hearing her voice over and over again, never go to Hartford, never go to Hartford at night. You're going to be in danger. I worked in Hartford. That's where my corporation was. And, winter, I was there past dark. And sometimes I wanted to go to a meeting afterwards by myself. And I just kept hearing her voice over and over again saying, no, you can't be in Hartford. And I had all this fear in my stomach, but I'm like, I want to go to this meeting. I really want to go. And then I finally said to myself, whose thought is this? That's her experience, her fears, her thoughts. They're not mine. They're things I was told over and over again. So they became, I thought they were mine, but they were not mine. So I'm cautious. I would walk with somebody else, make sure I was in the light, but I went to the meeting, and I didn't stop myself because I'm like, why am I going to stop myself from going to this meeting that I want to go to? I'm not going to live my life in fear. So whose thought was this? And that's what I take a look at, because if we look at our lives, if we think we stink at sports, like I grew up thinking I was horrible at sports. And, it's not a strong point of mine because I didn't grow up playing a lot of sports. But why? Ask why. If you think you're a horrible singer, why do you think you're a horrible singer? Is it because somebody told you back when you were 8 years old in choir that you were a horrible singer and you took it on? Those are other people's opinions. Now, does that mean you can go be on Broadway or be in an opera? Maybe not. But where did it come from? There was a story in a book I read about a young girl who loved to sing, and she was good at it. And her mom had a headache, and she just couldn't take it anymore. And here, the reactive part: shut up, you have a horrible voice. So she did. Mm-hmm. That was one comment because her mother had a headache, but she didn't know any better. When we're younger, we don't know any better. We look at our parents as gods, that they're these all-powerful beings that have it all together. And as we grow up, we know very well that's not true. But and we don't have it all together as adults. We know as parents we don't have it all together. But our kids don't see it that way. So we have a lot of beliefs growing up that, oh, I stink at this, or, I'm horrible at this, or I'm terrible, I'm a terrible person because of this. And it's not us. So you have to be able to discern between other people's opinions and what is really true. So that's why when you have a thought pop up in your head, is this true? Where did I have this thought come from? Because if you look at most of your thoughts, it came from your family, it came from society, it came from your classmates, it came from your teachers, and they could have been having an off day. Or who cares what their opinion is? Yeah. It matters what you think. I mean, yes, you have to be realistic, like we talked about. I mean, if you don't want to try to become an opera singer if you can't sing well. But most of our thoughts are erroneous. There are other people's perceptions or society, like aging. Who says we have to be decrepit and sick? How many people do I hear in my life? Oh, my knee hurts, and that's just part of getting older. Or this is because of I'm getting older. Who says? Who says? You can control some of that by eating healthy and exercising and sleeping and just basic habits. There are products out there that can help you look younger. I mean, you don't have to be in a retirement home. You don't have to fit society's norms. And another thing, family. Some of us have close families and a lot of us don't. But you're made to feel shame if you don't have the Rockwell family and Thanksgiving and everything's hunky-dory. And a lot of people I know, including me, have dysfunctional families, and you're not close to your family, and your mates, like something's wrong with you. If you don't have a close family, or, TV, family is everything. And, that, again, society norms. Why? Make your own family, make your own friends. So you don't have to buy into what other people tell you. You find your own truth. And I think because it is a primal urge, because we had to fit in many, as you were talking about, like in caveman days, to be protected, to survive, you needed that community. And we still need community for our emotional selves and for the health of our lives. But be yourself. You don't have to fit in for your survival anymore. The world actually needs you. The world needs your authenticity. And especially in the day of AI, chat GPT, things being made up, and we're really not going to be able to know the truth very quickly.
Yeah.
You have to know your own truth and share that truth with other people. And if it resonates with them, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But we have to be our authentic selves. So to get in touch with that, and to do that, you have to realize your thoughts aren't your own. So as you had shared, you thought your thoughts were part of you. I might have shared this in our last talk. I was teaching the class, so suffering, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And I shared that your thoughts aren't yours. And they're like, of course it's mine. It's in my head. Of course they're my thoughts. No, they're not. It's all programming. We've all been programmed.
Yes.
And it's our job to unlearn that programming and to really realize what is our truth. And it's okay if my truth isn't your truth. That's okay. As long as it's my truth. We need to discover things for ourselves without being so influenced by those around us. And, you're going to be protecting your little boy. You're going to make sure he doesn't run out in traffic. You need to protect him. And there are certain things that he's going to learn from you. But he has to find his own way. He's going to be his own being. He's not going to be a little Brandon copy or a Brianna copy. He's going to be his own little being. And that's what we all need to be, is our own selves. But too often, my child is going to do this. They're going to grow up to be a doctor, and they're going to marry this person, and they're going to do this with their lives. And we want to please our parents, so we do, until we realize that doesn't make us happy. And whose dream is this anyway? And whose thoughts are these anyway?
One of the ways that I'm going to protect him is he's not going to watch the news. That's going to be one of the biggest ways. I grew up in a household where every day before school, I would wake up and the news was just playing. The news was on. And it was just something that I grew up with. And I just became so much more at ease in my life when I finally moved out when I was 18 and I didn't watch the news at all. And sometimes people would bring up articles to me like, did you hear about this? Did you hear about the shooting? Did you hear about this, this, and this? And it's like, I didn't. It's terrible to hear that. But like you said, Julie, there's empathy. And there's also the importance of non-attachment to that event, because what can I do, right? We're doing what we can do. We're sharing what you're sharing and what I'm sharing, and we're doing what we can, but we can't control 99.9% of the things that happen out there. And if you think about what the news profits on, they profit from the shock and awe. They profit from having the terrible story front and center, the headline that catches your attention. So you buy the paper, or you stay and you give them your attention on the Fox News station. So you watch and listen to more, right? I got to tell you, you mentioned, back in the tribe, it was important to fit in. And yes, it still is important to fit in. It makes us feel good when we fit in. I would invite those listening to consider, what group do you want to fit into? Because let me tell you, we mentioned before, I was like, well, we're friends on Facebook, aren't we? And you're like, I think we are. And I remember that we were, but that was my old Facebook account that had like 2,000 friends. And I knew like maybe 80 of them, realistically, like knew them, would be able to call them and not have it be an awkward conversation. Maybe 80, probably less. And now I've got like 300 to 400 people on my Facebook that are actually friends of mine. And my news feed is much better. The algorithm is much better. I actually see posts that I want to see. So it just goes to show, decide which group you want to fit in with, right? Decide which people you want to accept advice from. You mentioned the idea of thoughts, right? And someone in your workshop saying, well, of course they're my thoughts. They're in my head. And that person, that wasn't like, they weren't trying to be funny. That was that person truly thinking that that's what thoughts were. There's something that he concocted. And for those listening who might still be in that boat, like I used to be, ask yourself, what are the dominating thoughts of my mind, right? Like as an example, a lot of the thoughts that we all experience is, what am I going to be? What are people going to think of me? What will my business succeed? Will I get laid off next week from my job because they're doing all these layoffs? Do I look fat in this outfit? Is this going to make me feel bad if I eat this meal? Am I eating too much? Like, there are no unique thoughts that we have on a daily basis. Julie has the same thoughts. I have the same thoughts. You have the same thoughts. So if you think about it, if we're not our thoughts, that we hear inside of our head, and maybe we even hear them in our own voice, then what are we? We are the awareness that those thoughts are whizzing through our minds. We are the question that you posed. Where is this coming from? That's an interesting thought. Is it true? Do I want to accept it? And if the answer is no, then you get to reframe it into a thought that you do want to accept, because at that moment, you're now changing your story. You're now changing your narrative. So these are powerful techniques that you're sharing, Julie. And I know that we could go on forever and share so much more, and we will. We'll have you on for round 3 because you're always working on new materials, and not even just new material, because this is what you've been working on. This has been your mission for a long time. But like you said, different, fun, catchy ways to deliver this information so that it's not just information, it's things that are actionable for people, which is powerful. I'd like to ask you, are there any specific resources that helped you in your own personal health journey? Maybe it was a book, maybe it was a website or an article that you would recommend to those listening that you believe would help them as well.
There are so many. I kind of tease that I'm the resource queen because I kind of just give people tons and tons of resources. So let's give one for kind of each one: the relax, reframe, replenish.
Great.
So for relax, find a type of exercise that helps you, stay in the present moment and relax. Could be yoga, could be Tai Chi, Qigong, but something that's easy, fun for you to incorporate throughout your day that really keeps you focused on the breath and on the body. And you can pair that with your favorite sports activities, if you play tennis or baseball or running, whatever you do, but pair it with something that's very body centric, that's going to help you in the present moment. As far as Reframe, Brandon was talking about, we are the awareness, and a great author for that is Eckhart Tolle. So Eckhart Tolle has written The Power of Now and A New Earth. Those are both excellent books to learn more about awareness and how our ego works and how to detach. Again, not that the ego's bad. We're never going to get rid of it. We're human, but just not to give our power away to it. And Wayne Dyer used to say ego was edging God out. That's what ego stood for. So Eckhart Tolle is a great place for awareness. Now, replenishing, I love water. Hydrotherapy is fantastic. So if you're blessed enough to have a big bathtub, take a nice bath, listen to music, a good talk on YouTube, Be Better podcasts, something that's going to enliven you and replenish you, something that's going to make you feel good. So I'm a big fan of, put in some nice bath gel and relaxed, take a nice hot bath. That's always relaxing. I know it's kind of cliche, but it works. So that's great for replenishing. And there's just so many tools out there. If you reach out to me, specifically on LinkedIn, I'd be happy to give you some more resources. I have to watch how many I give because I've got tons. I've been blessed enough to read a lot of books, but that's part of why I want to get the message out there is I've done a lot of research, taken a lot of my time to try to get myself healing. And I want to shortcut that for other people so that they don't have to read so many books and take so many courses and do so many things, because it's a lot of trial and error and we're all different. So, don't feel that, okay, well, Eckhart Tolle, I don't know what the heck he's talking about. That's fine. Go to somebody else. That's why there's so many different speakers in the world. That's why there's so many different authors. They all might be saying that same thing and coming from their own experience. And then one might resonate with you and another might not. And we're all different. And that's great. That's fine. Find what works for you. And that's why I want to emphasize, because there's too many one size fits all. Oh, well, this diet will work for everybody, or this type of exercise will work for everybody. Nothing works for everybody. I'm not going to work for everybody, and that's okay. Find what works for you. Just stick with it when you do. And just know that there is hope out there and things will work out better for you, because I think there's a lot of despair out there right now. I just want to reinforce that you can get better, you can reduce your stress, things can get better for you. Yes, it requires some work. Yes, it requires effort. There's no magic pill, there's no magic affirmation, but it is rewarding and it will happen for you. And just one thing I want to share
Mm-hmm.
that we talked about reframing is if you're not sure what your thoughts are, look at the people around you. Everybody is a funhouse mirror who's in your life. They will exaggerate the flaws you used to have. They will mirror back to you what you need to work on. They will show you your triggers. So instead of saying, oh, well, I got to get rid of this person because they make me angry all the time, if they're truly loving and the pros outweigh the cons, look at them and say, okay, where's this in myself? What do I need to heal? What do I need to change? The people in our lives are a real gift for showing us what we need to work on. As you were sharing, you and your wife and that's great that you can do it through humor, but some people do it through fighting or, altercations or, where does somebody rub you the wrong way? Because most likely if somebody is pushing that button, that's something that you need to heal. So for instance, if I'm defensive, I'm going to have people in my life that take that to a whole new level. And that shows me what I need to work on. So look at the people around you. And as you heal, either the people that you love will change the way they interact and you get to keep them, or people will just start falling away from your life and they'll bring in room for better people for you. Because we're constantly growing. I'm not the type of person who has the same best friend when I was 5 years old. I'm constantly changing my circle, but that's because I'm constantly growing. And when you constantly grow, people naturally fall away because they just don't resonate with you anymore. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person, doesn't mean they were a bad person. They were a great fit for back then. But your circle will definitely show you what your thoughts are and what you need to work on. So that's a great tool to use to reframe.
Well said. Many tools there that you gave and many resources. And Julie, it's always great chatting with you. You are a modern day philosopher. I truly mean that. You're just the way that you're able to pull these stories and experiences out of thin air, and they don't come from thin air. They come from, like I said, your experiences, but the way that you're able to share and package these ideas in simple ways is very powerful because these are very ethereal topics. These are very difficult topics, especially when you're first introduced to them, and you're very good at making them bite-sized and making it easier for people to snackify these different things as you coined from Toastmasters. So it's always great chatting with you. Thank you for snackifying all this for us today. And for those listening, you got to go follow Julie on LinkedIn. Julie's been spending a lot of time on LinkedIn, taking all of these things that we talked about today and snackifying them in a different format and posting and in the way that she comments on other people's content as well, which will pop up on your feed when you follow Julie. Links are in the description to go follow Julie on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on there. It's super important in today's age. It's probably my favorite platform to be on, which most of you know because you found me from LinkedIn. So be sure to go follow Julie and see all the awesome stuff that she's posting there. But Julie, thank you for coming on the show for round 2. It's always great seeing you, and I'm grateful to have you in my circle for the last 3 years or so. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Brandon. It's all about helping other people and hoping our stories can influence.
Absolutely. This has been another awesome conversation with Julie Cooley, where we spent a lot of time going over what is mindfulness, how can you practice it, how can you truly be in the moment now, as well as Julie's 3 R's that correlate with the body, the mind, and the spirit. And they are relax, which is for the body, reframe, which is for the mind, and replenish, which is for the spirit. You have several strategies for each one, along with different resources that you can use today in order to choose one to start doing today. Just one. Even if you're like, oh my God, but that sounds good. That sounds good. That sounds good. I want to turn the news off. I want to remove 1,000 Facebook friends. Just choose one thing and take one step forward today. Just like Julie said, you've got a minute. And if you've got a minute, you've got time to transform your life. I hope that you found a lot of value in today's conversation. If you did, please share this show with just one other person who could use it as well. Thank you for being the best part of the Be Better team. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.